Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quake Match gameplay. And this time around we are on the map Altdorf Outskirts, playing as the forces of the Beastmen against the forces of the Skaven. The battle of all battles. The battle between the two of the most hideous pseudo-human monstrosities, trying to figure out which of them is just a little more terrifying. And this video is in response to a request made that I discuss the Beastmen versus Skaven matchup as well as the Beastmen versus Chaos matchup. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get a good Chaos matchup, but I will be discussing some of the builds that I think are decent in that one as well at the end of this video. So definitely stay tuned for that if you're interested in me discussing that matchup a little bit. Otherwise, diving into this battle right here. There are a few ways both factions can actually approach this matchup, both Beastmen and Skaven. Skaven especially have a huge variety of approaches they can take. You can go with a more classic gun line, but you can also go very aggressive and try to go toe-to-toe with the Beastmen pretty reliably, because both factions are pretty fragile and flimsy in close quarters, and they're very sort of shock-heavy, and it becomes a pretty even fight. Now for Beastmen, there are not as many options, but Beastmen then again don't have that many options to begin with. You can go with a very wide swarm, or you can go with a bit more of a concentrated hammer blow. And here with this build, I've tried to sort of strike a balance. You can't just go all in my opinion, on just pure Minotaur spam. Perhaps you can, but I'd prefer not to. And so for the build, obviously we are bringing Morgur. I think Morgur is an excellent lord choice in this matchup, probably your best lord choice by far, largely because he's difficult to snipe. You get that 75% missile resist. That is going to prevent a Skaven from just sniping you across the map with Jezzails, with obviously with warp lightning cannons ability, or perhaps even storm beam and abilities like that. So it's going to make you tanky. Plus magic resist and regen does mean that he is pretty beefy against, for example, the Rubonicus. He's, in my opinion, good. And of course, you do get those two Chaos Spawn summons, which can be used to disrupt the enemy backline pretty efficiently. Now, for our main line here, we've simply brought a bunch of relatively low tier infantry, some Gore Herd, as well as some Blackhorn Ravagers, Regiment of Renown. I like these guys just because they're pretty sturdy and reliable core without costing an arm and a leg. And these guys will give you enough punch to trade well into Plague Monks and crush lower tier chaff infantry, and they're obviously give you a little bit of staying power without sort of breaking the bank. I think Bestigors, for example, are just overkill and too much money spent. On the flanks, we do have some Ungor Spears just to give us a little more breadth, a little more width, get a little more AoE coverage. And really the main crushing force here is 3 units of Minotaurs in the center. We've actually brought vanilla Minotaurs. This was actually a little bit of a test run here. Normally I bring shielded Minotaurs, but I wanted to see how much better the high DPS of the normal Minotaurs would perform. And because we're really going for a bunker busting strat, obviously you want the Butchers of Kalkengard just to give you that staying power, that regen, and most importantly terror, which is hard to come by. Now for our casters here, we do have a Bray Shaman of Death as well as a Bray Shaman of Shadows. Both are mounted on chariots. This helps them disrupt backlines better, helps them stay a little safer. And having 2 shamans gives you a little more variety of spells, gives you a little more killing power with your chariots, but also gives you some redundancy. If one gets sniped, the other can at least provide some spell support. So, and this is turn illegal, by the way, because we are bringing different spells and it's only 2 casters. So we got Enfeebling Foe, we got Elcos Miasma, and a Jagged Dagger on each of them for the extra ones of magic. For the Lord of Death caster, we do have Spirit Leech to snipe away at enemy lords, high value targets. As well as Doom and Darkness to potentially leadership nuke a point in the line. We also do have Jagged Dagger, as well as Life Leeching for that extra winds of magic. So, looking for a lot of debuffs for the snares and the Bray Shaman, of course, with Melkos Miasma and all that stuff. On the periphery here, we do have some vanilla Centaurs. I think Centaurs with great weapons are honestly largely wasted. They can perform better against, say, Doom Wheels, but against the vast majority of targets that the Skaven roster fields, Centaurs are more than adequate. And against Rat Ogres, which you'll see a lot of Clan Rats, Plague Monks, Skaven slaves, and backline troops, that is more than enough. And if we need to deal with Doom Wheels, that's what the Minotaurs are for. Finally, a single unit of Hounds, just because I had some points left over and I didn't want more infantry. Now for my opponent here, he is going to be bringing quite the mixed bag. It is a little bit of gun line, but obviously you don't want to go too heavy on that as Skaven, since Beastmen are very good at swarming. So for his Lord, my opponent has brought Skrulk with, of course, Summon Spam, because how else can you play the Skaven but spamming summons? We get Pestilent Birth as well as Vermintide. He also does have our Pestilence for the debuff, great little debuff, Plague Rash, going to be weakening my troops over time. Stand Your Ground, as well as Lily Rubonicus to potentially snipe out our Lord, which isn't going to do very much. Maybe against the Bray Shamans he could do something, but against Morgur, he's going to shrug it off. Frontline composed entirely of Skaven slaves, just there to zone things away and soak up the charges for the Plague Monks, who are going to outtrade Gores pretty effectively. Definitely a solid infantry choice if you want to go toe-to-toe with the Beastmen. 2 Poison Wind Mortars to soften up any infantry and cavalry, and these guys, against the more elite Beastmen troops will definitely do well. For example, Bestigors here could be a big threat. These guys will soften them up enough for hopefully the Plague Monks to do well. Backline, more Skaven slaves as well as Rat Ogres to provide that high mass. A lot of staying power, a lot of stopping power there. Definitely going to be a pain. And a single unit of Night Runners here in the center for a little extra DPS. So lines are going to be closing. You can see we managed to bait out the mortar shells into our Minotaurs, which is huge because that is the one target they will not do well against. I guess they won't do well against single entities either, but we don't want them hammering away at our poor Black Orange Ravagers because that Chem Cloud, the poison damage over time effect, will melt these guys very quickly. So as you can see here, concentrating all of our Minotaurs into one point. Now, this is complete overkill. These poor Skaven slaves don't stand a chance, but I want to remove them from the field, and the idea is to just bunker bust straight through the line. Not looking to do any fancy footwork. In the meantime, Hound's looking for a way in, though they're struggling. My opponent is using this house here as coverage against at least partially those Centaurs, and I don't want to commit the Centaurs into a fight with the Rat Ogres, especially backed by Skaven Slave Spears, because they will probably lose that fight. Out in the open, I'm not entirely sure how this battle goes. Centaurs will probably trade pretty well with Rat Ogres in isolation. But yeah, the Minotaur just plowing on through, going after the Plague Monks. My opponent does summon some Clan Rats, but in comes Morgar, full support there. And in the meantime, Black Orange Ravagers sort of diverging here with the Gore Herd. And these, once lines close here, once lines close, the Mortars will start doing friendly fire to their own Plague Monks. So that is going to help us quite a bit. It's going to prevent my opponent from just getting free damage with no consequences. In the meantime, Bray Shaman over here, sort of just bunging these guys down. You can see Chaos Spawn Summon going down, looking to shut down these Poison Wind Mortars over there. In the meantime, over here, Centaurs, not ideal situation for them fighting a Doom Wheel, but they can bog it down. They can just tie it down, do a little bit of damage, and force it away from this infantry pocket, in turn allowing this infantry to engage on my opponent's troops. In the meantime, Morgar, well, he doesn't really give a crap. Unfortunately, my opponent wastes his Libra Bonicus here. Definitely not what you want to be doing. Now, Wheels of Doom would probably beat Centaurs, no problem, but we hit it with an evading foe, making it a little softer, easier to beat up on. In the meantime, my opponent's army is in full flight on this flank. These Plague Monks fleeing for dear life, these Skaven slaves fleeing for dear life. We still have our peripheral troops here. These Centaurs got engaged on a little bit, but now they're going to come back in. Dogs coming back in. Minotaurs just continuously plowing through, not stopping for even a second. Doom and Darkness going down, shattering the line here. Rat Ogre's leadership will buckle as well. And you can see the poor Night Runners here being broken by the Doom and Darkness. So the Doom and Darkness, big debuff. Minus 16 leadership, lasts a decent amount of time. It's very strong in my opinion against Skaven because Skaven do not have the best leadership in their army in general. So you can potentially force breaks over here, not supported by Doom and Darkness, but Centaurs get a surround alongside the Gore Herd, breaking these Skaven slaves, the Rat Ogres, as well as the Poison Wind Mortars. Dogs come, or I believe, or just Skaven slaves flailing around. I mistook the Skaven slaves for dogs, but they're running them over. Here go the dogs, detaching over here to pursue and pressure the Plague Monks as well as the Poison Mortars. In the meantime, our Chariot Mob is just maneuvering around. So we've really... The point here was disruption. We managed to break our opponent's main line, we hit him from all sides, and we disrupted him into oblivion. And now my opponent is forced to try to respond, and all of his units, a lot of these units are getting run down. These Rat Ogres here being run off by Centaurs. Over here, the dogs have gotten on the Poison Mortars. Not going to be super quick for him. Dogs don't have much AP. The Poison Mortars have 70 armor, so it'll take the doggos a while, but, you know, we bogged them down. Unfortunately, Doom Wheel coming in to shut that crap down. In the meantime, because this pocket is mostly monsters infantry, the mortars are not doing that much work, and we do manage to force a rout. Once more, Terror going down from the Butchers of Kalkengard. Such a good bunker busting unit there. Unfortunately, Black Orange Ravagers have broken, but we do still have those Centaurs. We do still have the Chaos Spawn here coming in. The summon, of course, from the second summon from Morgar. These Rat Ogres are breaking. At this stage of the game, the balance of power is decisively in my favor. My opponent really can't do much. We managed to chase those Poison Mortars out of formation. They're now going to get run down by the Centaurs. 33 HP, run off. And now the Centaurs can just escape these Rat Ogres. They don't have to engage. They're not obligated to do so. So we're just going to kite. Keep my opponent's mass away. In the meantime, these Plague Monks, a lot of these are summons. Once they're gone, they're gone. The Doom Wheel is doing a lot of damage. It is difficult for me to stop with this build. I say difficult, it's not like impossible, but because we only have 2 units that can catch it, the Centaurs, reliably I should say. Technically the Chariots can catch it, but for them it's a little more difficult. But only the Centaurs can easily catch the Doom Wheel, so it makes it a little tough. But if we can snare it with the Centaurs, if we can hit it with the Melkos Miasma, then the Minotaurs can get on it and beat the crap out of it. Butchers of Kalkengard still have full HP, by the way, or full Model Hound, sorry, and healing. Now the Rat Ogres here and the Doom Wheel, my opponent, realizing that his formation is lost, is now trying to recover by picking off the peripheral troops. And so that's something you want to be wary of. You don't want to get... One thing with Beastmen that's very easy to do with Beastmen and Skaven is get overextended with your peripheral troops, have them running amok. So what I'm doing here is trying to regroup on my infantry. I don't want to lose my infantry necessarily. They do still provide a bit of a meat shield. Unfortunately, we do lose track of our Centaurs here, so they will take a full-blooded Rat Ogre charge. Not what you want, but, you know, it is what it is. On the periphery, in the meantime, Doggos over there. Blackhorn Ravager over there. I'm going to notice the Centaurs got bogged down, so I'm actually going to run them away, go after these Rat Ogres. I really don't want to fight these Rat Ogres, especially now that they got the charge. That would be a losing fight. So avoid losing fights if you can, even if you're always stuck in one. Now here we hit the Wheel of Doom with a Malcos Miasma, slowing it down, preventing the escape. Over here, some Skaven slaves are trying to prevent Morgur and the Bray Shaman from running everything over, but it's just a little too late. They can't stop it at this point. We are pursuing the Doom Wheel, trying to chase it off. Unfortunately, it does squeak away. We're not able to catch it. But we are removing the last of my opponent's peripheral troops. The Bray Shaman here is going to dive in on Lord Skrulk, knocking him over. I do believe he got hit by a Liber Bonicus there, but it just doesn't really matter. Skrulk over here cleaning up the Poison Wind Mortars. Gonna get engaged on by the Rat Ogres, but Mortar should be just fine there. And Bray Shaman here just continues running amok. And that's really going to be game. That's going to be the wrap. These guys are going to break. Army losses kicks in. The Wheel of Doom is not going to stick around. Boom. One and done. A Pyrrhic victory for the Beastmen. And this was against a solid opponent. Clear to Love X here is actually rather well-ranked ladder player. So this wasn't necessarily against a some random opponent. And the strat proved pretty functional. Now, is this the only way you can approach the matchup? Absolutely not. You can go much heavier on Centaurs, for example, with Beastmen. Heavier Centaur play gives you a little more counter, in some ways, a little more of a counterplay to Doom Wheels, as well as Doom Flares, because you can catch them. On the flip side, Minotaurs have higher mass, so they can prevent them from running through your infantry line, and they can just kind of stop them dead in their tracks and kick their teeth in. I really love the double Shaman. It gives you redundancy if your opponent tries to snipe you out. And obviously, when I'm on the Chariot, partially to disrupt backlines, partially because it allows them, if your opponent goes super heavy on artillery, you can close the gap through the rest of your army and keep your Shamans out of range, and then once the gap is closed, then you rush in with your Shamans as backup. So that's just some little suggestion there. Minobus, very strong here, I think. It can really bunker bust a line, but once again, you don't have to go with Minotaurs. You can go much wider. You can go with more Centaurs. For the cost of these guys, you can get several Centaurs with ray weapons, or some Centaurs with throwing axes, more vanilla Centaurs, more dogs, that sort of thing. I really would recommend Morgur, just because he's good at sniping. And I don't think Sigor play is the way to go here, because Skaven, if they bring any Jezzails or Warplating Cannons, they'll shut down a summoned Sigor pretty well, or they can just kind of stay away. I don't think it's really the way to go. But if you've had success with that, or you're somebody who does. Plus, the Sigor nowadays, because of its short duration, doesn't tend to get that much value out of its thrown rocks anymore. And if you're wasting shots on like Skaven slaves, who cares? It's a waste. So, just my 2 cents there on the Sigor summon play, because I know that's a common strat for some people, but I wouldn't recommend it. But regardless, you can see which units performed really well here. Obviously, a lot of them caught enemy troops on the retreat. Once the line was broken, the Minotaurs did an amazing job, just bunker busting. We're not focused effectively. My opponent didn't bring great tools to counter the Minotaurs. And so they just went ham. There wasn't much my opponent could really do to stop it here. And there isn't that much Skaven can do to stop. They need... be aware, of course, of Rattling Guns. Be aware of Warp Lightning Cannons, or of Night Runners and Gutter Runners and Skaven Slave Slingers, those sorts of units. If you see them, you want to shut them down quick, so that they can't butcher your Minotaurs. But otherwise, Minotaurs can really go to Pound Town. And lower DPS units like Jezzails, or of course the splash attacks, Poison Mortars, and that sort of thing, don't tend to phase Minotaurs too much. So, just my 2 cents there. Really, my main critique here for my opponent, if I were to give him one, would be the lack of anti-Minotaur protection, and by extension, lack of Gorbel protection. Rat Ogres don't really cut the mustard there, in my opinion. Even when I do go for a Rat Rush to match the Beastmen, I think it is incredibly valuable to bring some more, not just one unit of Night Runners, but multiple units of Night Runners, some Gutter Runners, units like that, to apply ranged pressure to the Minotaurs, because otherwise it's so difficult to shut them down. They're just beastly. So yeah, there's the build. Now, I did promise to go and demonstrate the or discuss Chaos as well, and this is a matchup that I personally have. I have actually, I believe, cast it on this channel before, but it's one I don't play particularly often. I guess because I don't play Beastmen that often either. Now, Chaos is actually a matchup where I don't particularly like Morgur, which might come as a bit of a surprise, but that's because my approach in this matchup is much kitier, and it's much more based around evasion and avoiding direct confrontation. Because Chaos will beat you in a straight infantry fight. And if you try to monster mash, Chaos will park a Shaggoth or something on top of their infantry and crump you over the head. And you're going to have a very bad day. So in my opinion, in the Chaos fight, you really need to shut down their cavalry. You need to shut down their fast troops. You need to shut down their skirmish cav, their dogs. If they brought Chaos Knights, which is a pretty common sight and a powerful sight, you need to shut those down. This is not an easy matchup, in my opinion, for the Beastmen. And then you need to sort of whittle your opponent down. Now, personally, I actually like Kazrak in this matchup. I'm not sure he's the best choice. It might actually be smarter to bring a Beast Lord. Either way, the reason I like these guys is because you can get a very strong chariot. Kazrak's chariot, I forget if his weapon strength is the same as the Beast Lord's. Perhaps I'd bring a Beast Lord, to be honest. I probably wouldn't bother with Totem of Rust. Horn of the First Beast is really why you bring the Beast Lord, so I'd definitely bring that. Apocalyptic Vision is good. Bloodlust, that's iffy. If you have a spec change, you can bring that. But you want the chariots, in my opinion. I think those are a must. Now, you could try to engage with Big Papa Corporal or whatever. You could try to do a Cygor strategy. Some players will do Cygor strats, and that is viable. I'm personally not a big fan of Cygor strats, and I'm not super confident with them, so I'm not going to give a sort of breakdown on how to do Cygor strat. But for the rest of the build, Caster will decide in a little bit. But you definitely want Centaurs with throwing axes. These guys are critical in this matchup. You cannot, in my opinion, you can't really get by too well without them. Now for the front line, this can be a little cheaper. So here's, when you're dealing with Chaos, you're really going to be trying to kill their lords and their elites, and then infantry is just cleanup. You clean up the infantry through cycle charging, through chariot play, and that sort of thing. So once again, you could bring a Brave Shaman. Let's say you bring Death, because that's a very generic and reliable lord. I wouldn't bother with Leadership Bombs. You're not going to be pulling that off here. Not going to bother with Soul Blight. Not going to bother with Purple Sun. Not even going to bother with Fate of Buno. We'll just bring this guy on a chariot there. We can bring a second Brave Shaman. If we want to keep it tourney legal, we can throw him on a chariot. I'd cut Smoke and Mirrors. Not really worth it. Keep those two spells, the Melkoth Miasma and Enfeebling Foe for the debuff, and then we can throw in another Jagged Dagger. Now this leaves you with about half your resources left. And how you want to spend these, well, a little bit of a question there. You could bring some Centaurs with great weapons, and then throw in some doggos. And weirdly enough, and this might seem like an oddball choice, you could actually bring some vanilla Centaurs here. The main reason being that vanilla Centaurs are a decent counter to enemy skirmish play, in my opinion, because they do have shields. They do have 95 speed when their primal fury is up, so they can do a decent job hounding down enemy skirmish play. Otherwise, you can just skip that and accept the fact that skirmish play is going to be something you have to deal with, or try to counter it with Melkoth Miasma and follow up snares from Warhounds or Centaurs. And so whether or not you want to bring these extra Centaurs, that's a little, how you want to finagle things. If you want to bring more Centaurs, that's a little debatable. But definitely want at least 3 or 4 Centaurs with throwing axes. Front line, in my opinion, I usually try to go more holding and not looking to super win. We stall out units such as Marauders, or potentially you can beat them down with a unit like Blackmore Ravagers. But if you need to deal with Chaos Marauders, okay, you can slow them down here. But otherwise, you don't really want to give your opponent a fight. That's not really the intention here. So you can go pretty cheap there. You've now got a very hefty kiting build. Whether or not you want to bring Minotaurs, that is a little something you can consider. Trying to think of how exactly you could finagle it, just to squeeze out potentially the Regiment of Renown, Centaurs, the Sons of Goros. 135 gold all over, so you could cut like that. Oh, that's frustrating. Trying to squeeze in. There you go. So you could do a build like this. And is this an optimal build? Debatable. It's not a matchup I played very often. I've run builds similar to this one against Chaos. Essentially, you want to pick them apart. If your opponent tries to engage you with Chaos Knights, you want to try to pull your opponent, draw your opponent away, because what you'll often see from Chaos players is multiple Chaos Knights, Dogs, Kolek, or Sarthoriel, very common picks there. Whatever the core of infantry is, you kind of want to ignore that and just draw your opponent away and deal with your opponent's Marauder Cap, deal with your opponent's Chaos Knights, those sorts of troops, isolate them, slaughter them, rinse and repeat. So you got to be very mobile, got to be very kitey. You could try to go for a more Cygor heavy build. It's something I'm personally not confident with. At that point, you'd probably want like the Eye of Morsley for the snare. Another option you could try, actually, I should definitely give this credit here, is also Razor Gores. Razor Gores are dirt cheap and can do a lot of AP damage in a burst, so you can bring like 3 of them instead of just the 2. So you could bring 3 Razor Gores instead of 2 Centaurs with great weapons. And if you're just using these guys as a zoning tool to protect your Centaurs against enemy dogs and against enemy knights, this is perfectly adequate. Razor Gores are good enough. So just my 2 cents there. And I know that was a little bit of a ranty discussion. You got 165 points left. You can use that in Bloodlust or whatever. Doesn't matter. But hopefully it is a little helpful. Hopefully it breaks down the match a little bit. Certainly there are other options. You can go with Minotaurs, I'm sure. It's something I haven't personally done. I'm not super fond of that against Chaos. I don't like generally facing Chaos in a straight up fight. It's not the greatest, but you could certainly attempt it. You could attempt Cygor play. I think Cygor play would not be too terrible. If you can chip away at their elite infantry and then isolate their big stuff, thanks to that, it could work. But in my opinion, I really like this sort of kiting strat. And you can finagle your numbers and your units around a little bit to generate a desirable force. You could cut Bloodlust, cut a Centaur, open up the path for a Centaur with great weapons. Something along those lines. And then you can, I don't know, throw some chevrons on him. Who gives a crap? Gives some value there. But there you go. That's my recommended build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this is helpful for any of you who are struggling with these sorts of builds against Chaos and against Skaven. Hopefully it gives you some ideas. As usual, leave your comments, critiques, requests, all that down below. I will do my very best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.